All right, this is Brian Zeller. It's my final presentation for financial management. I did it on my fire department, which is the South Shore Fire District. I delved into our budget, how our budget works, spoke to some of our chiefs, and kind of got a rundown of how things go with our budgeting for administration and our finances. So here we go. All right, so agency description. Like I said, South Shore Fire District is located in the South Fort Myers area. It's a home to approximately 62,000 residents, and it's a 55 square mile area in South Fort Myers, Lee County. So it's also an independent taxing district. Um, Down at the bottom here, we just have kind of like a little brief history of when the department started, which was in 1965 by two residents. At the time, it was 17 volunteer firefighters. And it was out of a gas station at the corner of 41 and Crystal Drive, which is now the home of our Station 61 now. That's the same location, but it's been remodeled several times over the years. So. All right, so Florida statutes and administrative codes. There was an extreme amount of statutes and administrative codes that have to do with the fire department that range from all over. Just some of the ones that we touch on here is Administrative Code 69A-60, I believe it's .003. I'm not sure exactly how you would read that, but it's entitled Standards of the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA 1, the fire code. NFPA 1 is the life code that pertains to all firefighters and safety. And I chose that one mostly for the administrative code just because that is the all-encompassing body that fire departments have to answer to, whether it comes to tools, resources, trucks, stations. Everything has to be fitted or up to the standard of the NFPA. And if it's not, then that could ultimately cause issues. And so you have to ultimately be choosing um, your budget and what you're purchasing based on the NFPA code. And if it makes that standard, otherwise it's a waste. Like I said, there was many Florida statutes that I had found. Some of them were fire and emergency incidents, occupational diseases of firefighters or persons, funds received by special fire control district, pension funds, which is also we're an independent taxing district, so that pertains to our department. Department of Revenue and Division of Retirement. Uh, so there was just many. I could have probably put down a couple hundred if I wanted to, but these are just some of the major ones that I saw that interest me, and I went through some of them, which was very interesting because I've never actually looked at that stuff, so I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, all right, and like just a little note down here. Without direct knowledge of the language in these codes and standards and statutes, it'd be very difficult for a district to create a budget. So let me move my face around here a little bit. There are many different components that make up the district's financial system. So here's the financial system. So our financial department is made up of actually one person. It works very well. She does an excellent job. She's really easy to contact and get questions answered. So that's worked very well for us. As far as I know, South Charles always had just one person operating the finances, and it seems to have worked fine. So and like I said, it handles all the income, funds, accounts, payroll, and miscellaneous spending and purchasing responsibilities. So the next component that I touched on is just our administration. I feel like our administration is extremely important because without a well operating administration, you're not going to get a budget done correctly, and you're not going to have a well adjusted financial system. So that administration needs to be effective. The next component, I said, which is also the backbone of the organization, is the employees, because the employees make up a large amount of the payroll. A lot of the finances in the budget go towards the employees, whether it's resources, um, payroll, promotional incentives, educational incentives, and then you have all your taxes, your pensions, your post employment health care, your disability, all those things that the department has to pay for on behalf of employees. And employees play a big role in that budgeting too. And at my department, we have budget requests where every year we could put in for tools and expenses and stuff that we think will better the department. Our salaries make up roughly 10 million to be exact, according to our budget online. And then the next component I said was operating expenses. I kind of went a little all over the place, but I felt like these were the biggest ones to hit. when I had sat down and talked to our administration. So obviously, your operating expenses make up a bunch of different facets when it comes to travel, training, IT, communication, utilities slash rent, repair, maintenance, supplies, tools, medical supplies, which our medical supplies are pretty expensive each year, obviously, and then machinery and equipment. So these are all just different components that I touched on in the final. All right. Technical aspects. So there are many technical political aspects when it comes to in the public sector creating a budget, obviously. So certain agencies may fall under different sets of laws or responsibilities based on their jurisdiction or state. So because we're an independent taxing district, we have a little bit of different rules as opposed to a city or a county. So the way my department does it is they meet in preparation with all the department heads to iron out upcoming fiscal year budget. While each agency may do things slightly different, all agencies must strive to achieve a well-balanced budget. So the South Shore Fire Department, we get the majority of our income from property tax. Obviously, we can also get it from new buildings and impact fees and stuff like that going up. But the majority of our budget comes from property taxes. So because we are an independent taxing district, one of the important things about us is we have to have a balanced budget by state law. If we do not have a balanced budget, then the state could come in technically and could take us over. So they have to have if they have more than 1 year in the red, so to say, then the state could come in and take over. So because of that, we have to make sure we have a very well balanced budget each year that we operate. Okay. Yeah, and like I said, just once the department's individual budgets are ironed out, the next step will be to plan for reserves and or future spending. And at South Shore, we actually have some future spending coming up here, which is interesting. So, oh man, my nose, I apologize. Sinuses. All right, long range revenue and expenditures. While each year the district creates a budget for the upcoming year, they need to plan for the future, obviously. I kind of threw this in here because I thought this was important. South Shore Fire District was one of the only, well, not only, but one of the fire departments that didn't have to make any layoffs during the crash, and that's because they had planned ahead well enough for potential crash. If the district is not preparing for future rainy days, apparatus costs, maintenance costs, or upgrades, then it's a district without a plan. As far as long range revenue, it's difficult to forecast, obviously, because of property taxes coming in, but it doesn't mean that you can't have some sort of a decent idea, or you can't just plan anyway and just hope, just base it on last year's taxes and then kind of see where it goes. And obviously, I kind of mentioned here, we're going through the COVID-19 thing, so everyone's kind of unsure what's going to be happening with our next couple budgets. So that's going to be a lot of question marks, I don't really envy my administration when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, but for our future costs, we have land in Gateway to move our Station 64 to a more central location in Gateway. So now that they have that land that's kind of in the middle of Gateway, they're going to have to start planning for that. And that's just one of the things that in our budget, we are starting to save for. And you can see it in our future plan and reserve. That money is getting put aside to build that station, so that way we have a better plan and we're able to operate it. All right. Sorry. All right. Ethical concerns. So obviously, we could beat this horse all day, but ethical concerns are obviously very big in the public sector. You're choosing to work for the citizens. And that's why we have board of commissioners that are elected that oversee everything. I mentioned here that it's extremely important to be, as a fire department, to be as transparent as possible. So more people that are involved in the budget and more people that can put their eyes on the budget, more members of the public, more obviously all the board of commissioners, all the employees, the more transparency we have, the more trust we can gain from the public and from each other. So it's extremely important to be ethical. And obviously, we have some things at play. And as far as my department, we have one person running the financial department. So that way it's up to have a very strong administration, human resources, very strong chief, assistant chief that are overseeing these things. So we're not just allowing just one person or just the chief or whoever making these big financial decisions. So that's important to be ethical when it comes to that. And then the last thing I put in here was just a quote that I had gotten that an ethical business organizes its financial house in ways that reflect a deep understanding of the company's responsibility to a range of stakeholders, which for us would be the citizens, from its employees to its community to the environment. Many business budgeting decisions involve choices between thoughtfully dealing with the consequences of companies' policies and earning extra money by cutting corners. So, just like I said, we need to be transparent and we need to be responsible to our citizens is the most important part about budgeting for a fire district. These are just my references that you can find in my final paper, and that is the end. So I really enjoyed this. It was really cool talking to my chiefs and my administration just about how we go about budgeting and everything, and it kind of showed me a lot. And I'm starting my capstone in the fall, and spoke to some of my chiefs about possibly maybe doing my capstone on like apparatus purchasing and future spending and expenditures, and they were super on board with helping me. So that was really cool. So yeah, so thank you. I appreciate it.